Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us to this webinar about Cloud-readiness IT Landscape, a stepping stone for cloud transformation. Today's speaker, we will have Jerome and Nafis from Mega, and Ben, myself, from EVA Group. But first, let's take a look at the agenda. First, we will talk about cloud transformation and pitfalls. Then we will move to a cloud readiness assessment with opex solution, and that will include a short demo of the solution. And then we will talk about cloud transformation project strategy approach by EVA Group. Finally, we will do some wrap up and takeaways, and we'll have an open session for question and answers. So don't hesitate to send your questions through the chat, and we will collect them. And as much as we can with the time, we will try to answer all of them. But first, let's talk about cloud transformation. Cloud transformation is the process to move to cloud your company assets. And this is from all your applications all the way down to your infrastructure. This process is part of the company strategy to support business objectives. You don't usually do this kind of transformation just because it's trendy. As such, companies usually list down those expected benefits. Move to CapEx to OpEx model, leveraging pay-as-you-go mechanisms. Decrease the time to market. Prototype faster and lessen impacts when failing. Increase reliability of underlying infrastructure, like high availability and DR. Make the information system more flexible and improve collaboration capabilities. Finally, include AI and machine learning capabilities more easily. Every transformation comes with its own risk to understand and mitigate. The first one is the unknown origin. So for every transformation, you need a destination and origin point. However, this origin is often unclear. And this is mainly due to a lack of visibility in terms of technology portfolio and data regulatory requirements, sometimes unknown from your applications. The second one is the uncontrolled IT spending. Think of water supply. For example, you are in a remote area and the only water that can be brought to your kitchen is the water from the well. So every time that you need new IT assets, then you will go to the well and bring back some bucket of water. Then suddenly you will have your water tap installed directly in your kitchen. So whenever you need more IT resources, you can just open the water tap. But you need as well to switch off the water tap. If not, you will pay for water that you are not using. It's the same thing with IT. Unmanaged spread of workloads, like forgotten prototypes or non-production systems that are live but not used, will cost you even if you don't need them. The third one is the non-optimized migrated workloads. And let's take another analogy, like moving houses. You will engage movers. They will bring to you different set of boxes. And the difference between filling those boxes up to 10 to 20% or up to 80% will be the difference between non-optimized migrated workloads versus optimized migrated workloads. In the first case, you will need more boxes for the same amount of workload, whereas you will have as well to pay for more trucks and more people to move your boxes. So this is to spend unnecessarily just because you didn't have the time to properly sort your workloads. The last one is the performance issues or unexpected disruptions. Those are usually due to incomplete flow maps and underestimated bandwidth needs. And you will see them mainly because of unknown calls between your different applications. And when you move them to different location, to different enterprise placements, as we say, that you will see those calls taking a lot of bandwidth, and that will as well potentially impact your security because of data that are not necessary inside. But now let's take a look at the cloud readiness assessment with opex solution. And I will let the floor to Jerome.
Thanks, Ben. Hi, everyone. I am Jerome, Services Director for Mega APAC. I am very pleased to give you some insight today on how we help our customers on their cloud migration journey. For those of you who don't know opex, let me first tell you a few things about Mega Platform. opex has been recognized for many years, actually more than 10 by Gartner, as a leading platform on the market. It provides solutions to support 4 domains, as you can see on the left-hand side of this image: business processes analysis, enterprise architecture, data governance, and risk management. Our focus today will be on the enterprise architecture domain that you can see here on the right-hand side, which makes it possible for large organizations to address many challenges with the following use cases that you can see now. As you can see at the bottom of this use case matrix, for all its solutions, opex has a central repository which contains the assets pertaining to each domain, which we call the baseline. In our case today, the inventory of IT assets such as applications and technologies. Let's drill down into the cloud migration use case and see how opex can help. Based on our experience with more than 2,000 large organizations around the world, we propose a 4-step approach which is very successful in driving cloud migrations initiatives. This approach is pragmatic and rely on industrialized deliverables for each step. The first step focuses on the business architecture of your organization, for which you can describe the cloud strategy and the roadmap with the vision, the goals, the tactics, and also with the KPIs and assessment criteria you will use to select the good candidates for the cloud migration. In the second step, you will then establish your cloud baseline from your inventory of applications and technologies. opex makes it very easy to collect these inventories with ready-to-use Excel imports or integration with other repositories such as CMDBs typically. opex then provides viewpoints that will help you visualize the status and dependencies of your applications, as you can see on the right-hand side of this image. You can see then this is an example of a generated graph that will display all the interfaces between your applications and the pieces of data that are going through. Then, depending on what criteria have been selected in the first step, opex provides many tools to assess and rank your applications. You have a large choice, like for example, testing your capabilities against various dimensions, such as technology obsolescence or compliance to standards and policies, and then projecting the status of these capabilities in the future, year by year, and eventually identifying the application, putting your capabilities at risk. Other dimensions that can be assessed are data sensitivity, which can be a key criteria in some countries for deciding if the application and its data can be hosted on the cloud, or for the portability assessment for in-house applications that we can get thanks to our connector to cast highlight. In a few minutes, we will give you a short demo of opex where you will see more examples in real time. Once the ranking on the application is done, the final activity of step 3 is to build the scenarios for the migration of selected applications. Considering costs, risks, or other factors, in the end, what's very important here for step 2 is to be able to compare the scenarios and provide the clear indicators to the management for the decision making on the scenario to execute. Once the scenario is selected, you can consider various tools to support the implementation and change management, the new architecture relying on the cloud services to avoid some pitfalls mentioned by Ben, and also for future projects that can leverage on it. And then customer journey, as you can see here on the image, maps to visualize the touch points impacted by the cloud migration and monitor them. Last but not least, step 4 is about managing the migration project, which needs to be monitored closely as it brings significant changes in your IT landscape. Doing so directly on your architecture repository makes it a lot easier to anticipate and address impacts of delays or issues on your other systems and business. Let's now have a look with Nafis on how opex supports these steps with a demo.
Thanks, Jerome, for that overview of the key stages and features when it comes to cloud-based transformation initiatives. So now let's look at a few of these on opex. So based on the methodology that we just saw on the previous slides, the first step to decide on any cloud transformation initiative is to make sure that you understand the cloud transformation strategy. And this can be mapped out at the top in business motivation. So in opex, you're able to do this with business motivation mapping. And this is done at the highest level with a very simple diagram as the one that you can see now that allows you to map motivation across your vision, mission, goals, strategies, tactics, and so on. For example, we have one of these goals, which is to move operations to the cloud, and this has multiple strategies. One of the strategies are to develop a cloud migration plan, which in turn has the following tactic, which is to migrate applications to the cloud based on something like cost metrics, which is one of the tools that you can use to justify cloud migration initiatives. So all of these objects are also mapped with their own details. For example, a goal can have its contributing means, which are the strategies, and also the refining ends, which are sub-objectives, and so on. And a tactic can have the capabilities that it ultimately requires to deliver the overall change in the organization. So all of these details can be maintained at a high level enterprise roadmap. And this is based on enterprise stages. So you have multiple stages like as is, to be, your multiple transitions, and so on, which have their own components. And all of these can be mapped on a single enterprise Gantt chart, which is auto-generated in opex, that shows each individual stage with the high-level strategic goals, objectives, capabilities delivered, and so on. So at the highest level, this is where you decide on the cloud strategy that you're going to employ, and in which enterprise stage does this cloud strategy fit in on the larger scale. And once you do this, you can now focus on the next stage, which is to define the cloud baseline. So the first step to defining the baseline is knowing what you already have. So opex's centralized repository allows you to maintain all your assets, such as applications, your technologies, and so on, with easy to access links or content that you can customize based on what you want. So all of these columns are based on a very similar design to Excel, where users are free to decide on which columns they see here as well. And these columns can be used to filter and sort for easy information access. For example, you're able to search for a particular application that you might be interested in evaluating for cloud migration, and then access its properties. So the properties within this application are maintained for different areas of use. So these segments of information have multiple users. In terms of cloud migration, you might be first interested in understanding which business lines your application is needed by, which processors it's used in, the capabilities that it helps to deliver, and the functionalities that it provides to the business. Another area when you consider cloud migration would be the technologies. So this could include even your cloud-based technologies like your AWS or Azure or any other cloud services, along with the vendor of that service, and if it's expected by the company to be used, or if it's even prohibited to be used in the context of this application. Another area would be the exchanges, which shows the interfaces and information flows between one of these applications and the other applications in its ecosystem. So this is available to show the flow as well as the content being communicated to, along with the data being communicated. And this is important when you need to understand the CRUD level access of what your application does in terms of the information used in your organization. Likewise, there are many other areas like installation, version, projects, and cost that will contribute to building your baseline repository. So Hopex gives you some quick wins where it will give you a lot of auto-generated diagrams and reports to visualize this information in a much clearer way. For example, this particular report shows an overall structure of how a single application communicates with everything else in its ecosystem. And you can zero in to one of these relationships and then understand the exact information being communicated and in which scenario it's communicated as well. Likewise, you can use this report to understand how an application and its instances are used across all your business units and regions. And this also shows that this particular application is on-premise. So it could be a starting point to analyze how you can move this to the cloud. And you can get different views in this way as well. Likewise, you can make use of all the other reports available for different scenarios of your impact analysis. Now, when considering the assessments available, Hopex provides a fully fledged assessment tool which can be used to get information from various subject matter experts. So this particular view is a very simplified view that we're seeing right now that allows an application owner, for example, to place an assessment in terms like business value, functional support, technical efficiency, and any other dimension that's needed, where they can also expand this dimension to get further details and further granular expressions of each assessment. So just like that basic assessment, you also have cast highlight, which is something that is integrated already into Hopex, and this gives you very specific values in terms of cloud migration information like the cloud ready score, the cloud ready scan, technical debt, software agility, and so on. So this gets you the additional layer of information that you need to make assessments. So once all of this information is logged in, another quick win for you is to map out all of this in instant visualizations. So for example, we can select these applications and then see how they compare against each other in terms of fields in multi-dimensions or single dimension, for example. So we can get a single dimension to see which applications are still on-premise versus the ones which are already on the cloud. So for example, in this subset of information, it shows that 90% of the applications in the repository are still on-premise, whereas some of them are already on the cloud. So you can access the subset of these applications which are on-premise and sort them by the cloud ready score, for example, to get further details on this set of applications. So these visualizations are called instant reports in Hopex. They can be saved, pinged to a dashboard, as we'll see a little later on, and used for consistent monitoring of your transformation efforts. So when picking out candidates for cloud migration, it's helpful to know which have the most impact on your business. So the business capability map, which you can see now, is a auto-generated view in Hopex. It's based on the hierarchy of capabilities, and it lets you see how capabilities are structured within each other and which applications contribute to these capabilities. So for example, if you see based on this legend here that a particular capability has high business value, but it has low efficiency and very poor IT support, you will want to see if there's any potential here to migrate these applications to the cloud. And as you can see, these two systems along with these processors contribute to this capability, and they too have similar problems. So perhaps migrating to a cloud-based solution along with the necessary solution architecture changes will deliver much greater value on this capability. And you can use this sort of report to get a deeper understanding on how your business operations can be improved by your initiatives. So when considering the next stage of designing cloud architecture, change can also stem from new ways of doing business. For example, a customer journey map. Especially in times such as now, you might have to change the way in which you interact with customers, and this could cause the need to expedite changes on certain touch points. So in this map, we do have a touch point, and it does have contributing applications and processes. So in this particular touch point, we can now access the solution architecture of each of these applications. For example, this particular application, it will have solution architecture diagrams for different purposes. The internal architecture diagram, for example, can be one of these, where you can now use Hopex's full-featured graphical web-based editor to edit this diagram, and then include a new service, for example, with drag and drop features. So for example, if there is a new Azure-based synchronization API based on the cloud technology catalog that you have, you can drag it and place it onto the diagram, and then also connect it to the relevant component. So this lets you specify the content being communicated as well in a very simple manner, so that changes can be managed within your solution architecture teams. They can collaborate on changes and work with them as well. And the changes of all of this can be evaluated on the impact that it has to the rest of your organization, such as the impact that it has on processes, capabilities, infrastructures, and overall transformation in terms of business capability maps as well. So this sort of views are also available at other levels, for example, physical architecture. Now, in physical architecture, you can also see, for example, the implementation of a new cloud data center in your to-be physical architecture, where you can drill down into this data center and understand how the platform is structured in terms of its individual components. So I have 3 platforms here, and for each of these platforms, how they are structured in terms of the servers they have on your cloud service provider. So these could be, for example, AWS servers, Azure servers, and so on, and how each server is configured as well. So all of this lets you respond very quickly to the changes that you have to make, and make sure that your organization is doing the right thing in implementing and responding to changes as fast as possible. Now, for the final stage, which is to drive cloud migration, Hopex provides the ability to maintain all your enterprise transformation efforts as portfolios of projects. So you might have multiple portfolios. For example, you may have one portfolio dedicated to cloud ecosystem transformation, and this will have its own projects. So the projects in this portfolio could all be the cloud projects that you have to run, and they can be scored and ranked inside the portfolio based on different weightage criteria. For example, strategic alignment, as we saw earlier in terms of business motivation, has 40% ranking or weightage, which will pull up certain projects to the top and keep others at the bottom. So each project can be maintained with its own information, like its project charter, its milestones, and its business case. And this allows you to maintain all the details you need for the project, such as transformation purpose. So is it an innovation, an improvement, or rationalization, and the deliverables. For example, in this cloud migration effort, this particular legacy on-premise server is being decommissioned in milestone 1, whereas this new IT service is being included along with this SaaS-based cloud access in milestone 2 and milestone 3 respectively. Along with this, dependencies for the project, like prerequisites. For example, if you need a particular technology to be up and running before the project, they can be linked as well, along with reference costs. So if migrating to the cloud has some expenses as well as operating ongoing costs, these can be maintained as well. So all of this information can be tracked on an overall reporting dashboard such as this, and also a project roadmap which shows a Gantt chart view of all the projects being done in a portfolio. So for example, all your cloud projects can be viewed in one single way. Likewise, other comparison reports are available for your usage as well. So all information that you're interested in maintaining can be viewed on a personalized single dashboard. And this lets you monitor all metrics that you'd like to keep an eye on a day-to-day basis, and they can be accessed at your convenience on this sort of dashboard. For example, you might want to have your CAST metrics as we saw earlier. So you will have your cloud readiness score, and you'd want to maintain this score as a CAST pie chart. So this shows the metrics which are the ones which are empty, which don't have evaluation, and perhaps the ones which are most ready, like this 77 rating plus ones here, which is this particular application. As you can see, the cloud ready score of 71 is available, so up to 77 is a bracket, and now you're able to view the details of this application and take further action as well. So to summarize, we had a brief demo on all these 4 stages. We first saw the way we decide on a cloud strategy in terms of your business motivation, your enterprise roadmap, and so on. We then saw the baseline, which is all about building your inventory and making sure the correct assessments and impact analysis tools are used in selecting relevant cloud initiatives. And then how you can use these selections to now work with your solution architecture teams purely on opex to design the new reference architectures, and then finally use projects and project portfolios and dashboards to drive cloud migration and keep all your users having the latest metrics for monitoring as well.
Thanks, Nafis. Your line was shut eventually. I will take over. I hope everyone enjoyed this short demo and appreciated the tools provided to help you assess your applications and provide your management great indicators so they can define the cloud migration roadmap. As you could see in Nafis' demo, opex brings many nice features and deliverables ready to be used for your cloud transformation initiatives. There are actually many more, as you can see here on another example, with embedded accelerators to facilitate designing and assessing your cloud landscape. Before I hand over to Ben for the last part of this webinar, so he can give you great insights on best practices for your initiatives, I'll finish with this overview of the stakeholders who are typically contributing or benefiting on the cloud migration by using opex, and also showing what are the typical integrations used to make the initiative successful. We would be happy, of course, to give you more details, but for now, I will hand over to Ben. Ben, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Jerome. So now let's look into the cloud transformation project strategy approach that we follow at EVA Group. And the first one, it's about defining a meaningful quick win. It's not just, let's say, one example, but it's a recommendation as well from all over the place, from all public cloud providers as well, that if you want to have like a successful cloud transformation project, you need to start with a meaningful quick win. So what do we mean by meaningful quick win? So a quick win will be like a workload that is easy to migrate. So in terms of technicity, easy to medium. And the meaningful part will come from the business that it is currently supporting and will support in the future. So the best is to choose a core application with easy to medium stack in terms of complexity as a candidate. When you do this choice, that will as well help you to identify the priorities that you will use for the following different set of workload that you will want to migrate to the cloud. Remember as well that the cloud transformation is linked to an overall strategy. And this strategy is encompassing application and system that will not be transformed, like application sunsetting and legacy system with specific hardware requirements. The cloud transformation journey. So the company journey is called a cloud transformation journey, and it includes workloads to be transformed or not in several steps, as well as organization transformation to not underestimate. Your organization is being supported by your people, and this cloud transformation journey will impact them as well. But let's look into the different types of cloud transformations that can be applied to your workloads, like sunsetting, retain, relocate, rehosting, repurchasing, replatforming, and refactoring. And you will see the arrow on the right that is representing the level of effort per type of cloud transformation. This is as well representing the level of benefit that you can expect by moving to the cloud. The journey can be adjusting along the way. The important part is really to first define your destination, the overall direction of it, and to start with the first one or two sets and start the, let's say, start the transformation and the journey. Then after one or two steps, you can learn from those first steps and maybe readjust along the way. And to do that, let's look into the IT landscape trimming. As seen in the pitfalls, overspending is a key issue in cloud transformation projects. The project should include IT landscape trimming activities such as rationalization. So I think you have seen that in the demo just earlier, where you have like the map with all the different items sorted and regrouped in terms of business value, in terms of how efficient they are, and what are the different components or IT assets that are participating in each role and function. So the rationalization is when you have several application or system and then define a target for all of the same function. It could be one of them, or it could be a new one that will encompass all of those items. And that can be identified, like we have just seen, through IT landscape from an enterprise architecture solution. The second activity in IT landscape trimming is the capacity optimization or right sizing. If you remember, I was using the analogy about house moving. And the purpose is really to understand what is the right size of your workload and then choose the box that will fit them. This is usually done through monitoring and graph analysis of the different workloads supporting your applications. The last one is the flow analysis, is to identify all the calls between the systems to optimize future placement and bandwidth. So we have seen some examples in opex demo just earlier with all those arrows between the different systems, how they communicate together, what kind of information they share. And this is how you can then analyze and rework some of the calls to be less heavy, to maybe shorten or rationalize some of those calls to be done in the same systems instead of all replications, and to start as well implementing decoupling mechanisms such as queues, ESB, iPass, and so on. This is to prevent saturation, like we have said, but as well as a security side benefit to lower the data that will be transferred maybe between different locations. So let's take a look now at some wrap-up and takeaways. And the first one is to make a summary about what to do when you do your cloud transformation project. The first one is to describe your IT landscape per decreasing order of business importance. Like we have seen, you don't need to have everything to be mapped to be able to start your project. Analyze your IT landscape to assess your cloud transformation readiness. Define your target placement strategy and the types of transformation to take place. Define first 2 sets of workloads for meaningful quick wins from your IT landscape and put them on a map. Transform the first set, debrief, and learn from it. This is a very important step when you need to really analyze what has been done, what has been working, what has been challenging, what has not been working, and so that you can leverage on them on the first few sets. Repeat to map your remaining assets in your IT landscape, define additional sets and transform them, and continue like that along the way. Let's have a quick look into our services. At Eva Group, as part of our cloud practice, we are specializing into cloud transformation journeys, from strategy and definition to rollout, hybrid multi-cloud design and expertise, with solution architects certified in all major public cloud providers, IT organization change management with training, role definition for people, and RFP management, helping organizations to choose their IT vendors in terms of managed services or solutions in regard to their business needs.
And from Mega perspective, with opex and typically with combining Eva Group expertise, with opex capabilities, you will be able to activate your central repository with an horizontal view of your IT landscape. You will benefit from a solution that fits large organizations and that provides out-of-the-box dashboards to support the decision-making on defining your cloud transformation. And eventually, that will bring visibility and value to all stakeholders, from business to project teams, so they can become contributors for your next use case on your transformation journey.
So in terms of, thank you for all your presence today. So I think now we can get some questions around.
So as Ben mentioned earlier, feel free to ask your questions in the chat section of GoToMeeting. We have a few of them. I may take the first one, Ben, which is
Sure.
how long it usually takes to build the inventory before assessing the applications. So yeah, that's a typical one we address with opex. So in a nutshell, it can go pretty fast. It of course depends on the size and complexity of the organization, but in any case, as Ben highlighted in his slides, we start with the horizontal view of the IT landscape, which means the global list of applications with few key characteristics that are already available in your organization, for instance, in other repositories. It can be PPM tools, procurement tools, CMDBs, etc., and import this information into the opex repository. So this is the best way to achieve quick wins and deliver value to your organization by being able to assess your applications for the cloud migration based on the most reliable set of characteristics. So this type of work, to answer the question, is usually achievable in few weeks, for a few weeks to 1 or 2 months, depending on the size of the organization.
Okay, then I've seen another question. So first, it's more like an administrative one, but yes, we will send you a copy of the presentation, or let's say the replay of it. So you will get all of those. The other question that we had was, what are the factors considered while identifying the cloud strategy, like reshot, replatform, refactor, and re-architect. So I think this is the, maybe we can go back a few slides to show this one again. No, that was just a few slides above. The one with the arrow in red, 20, I guess. Okay. So what are the different factors considered when identifying the different cloud strategy transformation? That will depend of the application itself, but mainly as well on the business function. Like we said, is if we have some application that are meant to replace some others, then what you want to do first is to be able to target the sunset to be close enough to avoid double run in terms of costing perspective. Then how to choose between relocate, rehosting, repurchasing, replatforming, and refactoring. So first, relocate is moving from one location to another location. That's all. Rehosting is using, for example, if you are on premise, maybe you have some systems that are hosted on the VMware ESX platform or vCenter, and you migrate your virtual machine, same stack from OS to application, to a public cloud providers like AWS, Azure, Google Cloud, or Ali Cloud. The repurchasing is how you, let's say, repurchase different capabilities directly from the cloud, where you don't use, for example, your license, but directly use the license in the cloud. That will be more optimized for the new model. The replatforming is when you change part of the stack, like operating system, and sometimes as well the middleware, to upgrade them. And the refactoring is when you actually move into the different capabilities and components of your application into directly available public cloud components, usually provided as SaaS. Like, for example, when you use messaging system or queue system directly in the cloud and so on. So what are the different factors between all of them? It comes with, let's say, two main criteria. The first criteria, like we said, is the cloud readiness of the application. Is it like one big solution that actually you have to keep it as it is? So in this case, you will not have a lot of different options, and you definitely won't be able to use the refactoring. If it's an application that you have the property, or that your vendor as well have a solution or version of your solution that can be used directly in the cloud by leveraging public cloud providers items, then in this case, you can go all the way to the refactoring. We have made some internal studies, and for example, if you're looking, for example, for a web server, between a relocate and a refactoring, when moving to the cloud, you can get 1 to 5 or 1 to 10 in terms of cost saving. Jerome, you want to take the next one?
Yep. So next one I see is how do we get application and server mapping and related data flow for application dependencies. So again, a question on how to populate the inventory and repository on which you're going to leverage to build your quick wins and select your best candidate for cloud migration. So depending on the organization, when starting building such kind of inventory, we usually collect what is available either in typical Excel sheets from stakeholders with the inventory of application and their servers. So it's never a perfect set of information, but at least it's a first step to populate the repository. Or we get it from integrating with the CMDB. Some organizations have CMDBs where this information is available. Then what matters is indeed to put in place procedures, process for this architecture information to be maintained and populated properly. So it sounds heavy when we say architecture, but it's indeed something very pragmatic to say that for each milestone of your lifecycle of your system, of your applications, you will define when such kind of information has to be updated or checked through campaigns, through workflows to make sure that information on your deployment is well populated in your inventory. It is the same about data flows, which is usually defined at the architecture level, and then you can generate those reports very easily to assess and visualize the dependencies between your applications. Ben, let you take another one.
Okay. So next one will be what level of saving performance management can bring, or more generally, the IT trimming section. So we have seen the three different activities, such as rationalization, right sizing, and the flow mapping. Usually what you can see with the performance management or the right sizing is to bring between 20 to 50% in terms of cost saving compared to just relocate your assets as is. So this is a very important activity to take into your cloud transformation. That sounds a little bit technical, but in fact, you can do very quickly with monitoring information some already quite a good saving just by doing this activity. Jerome, another one?
And let me also, somebody was asking to see again the 4 steps in this approach. So if we can go back to the slide at the beginning of the presentation, showing the 4 steps. Yeah, here you are. So something I should highlight regarding those 4 steps is you have to be pragmatic. Once again, if the strategy is not available to you, you can already start by doing some assessment on running step 2 of this approach. So we have here a logical sequence, but some organizations will start directly at step 2, being able to populate this inventory and running some assessment on few criteria that architects know are reliable and relevant for assessing the cloud migration, like technology obsolescence, technology standards, or if you have many in-house applications using indicators from Cast Highlight, for instance. So there are many possible ways depending on the type of IT landscape you have and your maturity in terms of running those 4 steps. Again, step 2 is mandatory. Step 1 is the best way to make sure that you will align your decision making based on the KPIs and KRIs and indicators selected, defined by your top management. Then running the initiative by designing the cloud architecture and following up by monitoring the implementation in step 4. Then maybe time for a last one.
Yeah. I think you have a follow-up question on it, Jerome, if you want to continue on it.
Sorry, which is?
Do we have prerequisites or inputs and outputs for each stage in methodology?
Okay, yeah. So definitely, I mean, the idea is really related to what Ben was highlighted during his presentation on selecting quick wins. What matters here for this kind of initiative is to be very pragmatic, to make sure that you're going to deliver something quickly to your organization that will bring value on at least a few applications. You don't have to run for the whole assessment of your full IT landscape. You can start with a kind of pilot on a business line, on a business domain, or with few stakeholders you know are responsive and available for this kind of work. So again, being pragmatic is key here to be able to showcase the value of the approach and validating it with your top management. So inputs are, of course, to be able to get some details, some characteristics on your IT landscape, on your applications, to assess them and to provide some key criteria, key indicators on what are the best candidates for the cloud migration. So again, from one organization to another, the criteria will vary. And then follow up with the various outputs that are mentioned in the question, based on the nice report that you could see in opex. You don't have to generate all those reports at once. Again, you have to be pragmatic, and based on the indicators you will select, you will maybe use 3-4 dashboards initially that will be able make it possible to do this scoring on your applications and help again your management making the good decisions on picking up the first applications to be moved to the cloud.
Then I will finish with another quick question. What is the hybrid multi-cloud setup? So hybrid multi-cloud setup is referring to two different parts. So multi-cloud is when you have your workload in different cloud providers. So for example, you may have some items in a public cloud provider, some others in private cloud provider, or different public cloud providers. So this is to address the multi-cloud part. The hybrid one is when you have, let's say, one fit between on-premise setups and this multi-cloud setup. So when you start basically your, let's say, your cloud transformation journey, you are really reaching very quickly the hybrid cloud setup. And if you choose different target in terms of public cloud, for example, then you reach this hybrid multi-cloud setup. And as you can understand, that comes with its own set of challenges because then you have your workload in different cloud providers with their own pricing as well. And all the different optimization that you can bring to the table between flows, between choosing the right box for your different workload will have an impact on the efficiency and the TCO of your overall information system. So thank you for joining us to this webinar. We will just maybe go by one slide to explain one item. So Eva Group, APAC, and Mega APAC are proposing a new option for organization planning and or accelerating their cloud transformation journey, which is the IT Landscape Managed Service. And this service is combining opex solution and Eva Group expertise and is orienting on your business KPI of your organization. The purpose is really to not just look at a different set of solution or expertise, but really to support your business into transforming to the cloud and having this cloud transformation journey be successful and as smooth as possible as well. So thank you all. I don't know, Jerome, if you have one last word.
No, again, thanks everyone for attending this webinar today. We hope it was insightful and helpful for you to quick start your initiatives on cloud migration. Of course, feel free to contact us if you have any question or if you want more details on our joint services to support our customers on driving these initiatives. Thanks again for your time. Thanks, Ben, and thanks, Nafis, for the demo.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.